Hello everyone, it's Karen at the Cool Tools Studio, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how to use the connector series of finishing touches molds to create metal clay chains. Each mold has two different sizes of links, and they come in kind of some chunky chains that are really nice for base metal clays because you're going to be using a little more material. And then there are also some thinner, more delicate chains that you can create. There's this kind of fun sort of shape that narrows in the middle here. These are some samples that I've created using the connector's finishing touches molds, and I think it really shows how you can create beautiful handmade chains at home using metal clay. To create chains using these connector's finishing touches molds, you don't need very many tools. You need a mold of your choice, a work surface, a scalpel, a palette knife, a hot plate, some tough cards, sanding pads, and some water in a dish with a brush. And then you need to select a clay to work with. I used Aureus Bright Bronze in most of my samples, but I'd also like to recommend Cypress Copper Clay or Easy 960 Sterling. I'm recommending these three clays because they have a good amount of flexibility in the greenware stage. When you're building your chains, you need to be able to flex open the links a little bit and close them without the clay breaking, so you need a clay that is flexible in greenware. These molds work best with fresh clay, but if you're working with slightly older clay, you can always kind of lay it a little bit flat, pick up some water, and fold it in. Because if your clay is kind of dry when you go to lay it in, it might not meet the bottom of the mold perfectly, and you might find that you have some cracks in your links. So fresh clay or freshly softened clay is best. I have a palette knife here, and today I'm going to be using it. You can use a kidney scraper as well, but just to offer some variety, I'm going to show the palette knife as an option. And just like our other finishing touches molds, you start off by pushing clay down and applying it to your surface, and pushing down and dragging across to get it into those low areas on your mold. And then at this point, I'll kind of start clearing it. And you can always rotate if you're finding that you're scraping out and you need to fill just one specific spot. I just kind of work my way across. And once you get a hand for it, this ends up going quicker. It's like all things, sometimes it takes a little practice to figure out the most effective and efficient way to do it. But you do want to make sure that you're paying attention to the top surface of your links here, and you're smoothing things off well. If you kind of have a high area on some of your links that you didn't clear off all the way, that's going to make it difficult for you to have full surface contact when you're connecting your links. So just to smooth everything out for these, since this back surface is important, once I have my clay laid down and in, I dampen a finger and just smooth everything out. Give it one final swipe over to remove some extra moisture there. And we're gonna go off to the hot plate to dry. So I've dried my clay in my mold, and as you can see, some of them are already starting to kind of self-relieve, but because there is this interior shape, some of them are a little more difficult to get out than just the other finishing touches molds where you just flip and tap. So for these, I'll typically lay it flat and then kind of just peel back at a sharp angle. Let them pop and fall out. And then you've got lots of little links to work with. For today, I'm just going to be demonstrating with these little links. And I always like to bring a tough card out because then it's easy to move things off to heating surfaces to cool things down. And I'm laying them all with their flat side up. So when I'm building my links, what I usually do is I go ahead and add moisture to this connecting face on all of my links at once and let it kind of soak in, and then revisit it with a little more moisture immediately before I connect them. But I find that by adding moisture to the surface and letting it sit, it kind of softens the clay and allows for them to join more readily and give you a little bit more kind of wiggle room for connecting the links. So you can kind of see how this top one that was the first that got some moisture has already sort of soaked it all in. So at this point, before I connect, I'm going to go ahead and just give it one more brush. And then I'm joining flat face to flat face here. So I have a round three-dimensional link. And for that, I just pick up and kind of line up and then apply some pressure with my fingers. You always kind of check to make sure you're not scooting. And then at this point, I take a damp brush and I clean up my seam a little bit. Because while you can sand and clean up any breaks or lines that you might have, it's a lot easier to just kind of buff it out while it's still a little bit damp and workable this way. And then I'm also going to hit that interior while I'm at it. And then at this point I've got another tough card that I'm going to put my finished links on and just keep on working my way down the line. Once you've connected your shapes to create links, you want to dry them completely before you start building your chain. When your links are completely dry, you're ready to start connecting them, but before you dive right in, spend some time planning so you're not opening and closing unnecessary links. For example, I wouldn't want to cut every single link open to join it when I can open just this one center link and combine these two. And then once this little group of 3 is done, I can use just one to combine 2 groups of 3. So you want to avoid unnecessarily cutting and closing links. And to open up my links, I just use a scalpel. And I typically cut at the end where it's going to be a little bit hidden by overlap. And then this is where the flexible and greenware comes in. You want to make sure you're able to kind of flex a little bit to accommodate. And I'm opening this one link and putting in one other link, and then the other link. And then at this point, I'm going to close the link. And for that, I really like Aureus Bronze Clay and Cyprocopper's Clay because they come with syringe that's available. And that's just a really convenient way to be precise when you're adding material. Paste can get kind of messy sometimes when you're just applying it with a brush, but with a syringe, I'll just add a tiny dot to kind of help smooth and potentially fill in any gaps. It's a little bit more generous. Borrow some of that and save it for later. And I'll just smooth that out. And you want to avoid adding too much material because that'll just give you more cleanup that you'll have to do when you get to the sanding phase. But there's one little group. And you can see how it's kind of really a quick and easy way to just build up a chain. I'll create this other group of 3 before using this last link to combine them. Again, just a little bit of water. And then it's funny, sometimes it kind of behaves like a traditional metal chain where you kind of have to push one way and then the other to get it to kind of spring back to closed. Just smooth that out. All right. So then I've got this last one to connect. close that one just like I have the other two before putting it off to dry. And then I'm going to really quickly show you the thicker chain links, just because they do take a little bit more wiggling because there's more material there, but this process still works the same way. I'd just like to demonstrate it for you as well. So I'm going to take this guy off to dry. So with these thicker, more chunky links, there's a little bit more material there that you have to fuss and wiggle with, but it's still, if you have a nice flexible clay, you should still be able to open it enough to be able to accommodate fitting another link in. So again, I'm going to kind of flex it back, let it sort of spring, put a little bit of moisture, and then just a tiny bit more material here to help kind of blend and fill any gaps there may be. But that's basically the process. As you can see, it's a really simple and straightforward way to build up some chains. So my chain has dried, and at this point, I'm just going to take a quick look at it and my seams and connections and check to see if I need to do any cleanup prior to firing. There shouldn't be too much that needs to be done, but every once in a while I'll just knock something down with an ultrafine or microfine sanding pad. When you are happy with your chain, you need to fire them in support. So with these base metal chains, you're going to be firing in carbon, but if you were to be working with silver, you'd want to use a support like alumina hydrate or vermiculite, depending upon which clay you're using. The Connectors line of Finishing Touches molds offer a simple way to create professional looking metal clay chains, helping makers create beautiful chains to complement their homemade pendants or charms. I hope this video helps you find success while using them and that you feel like you can give creating metal clay chains a go. Thanks for watching.